Hopefulness 2.0, day 24. Cooking me some more pasta again. I just realized gotta dump that in there because I'm using this to store the bacon once it's done cooking because it's currently cooking. So I've just finished watching Short Circuit. Hadn't seen that in forever. And I gotta say, it's a good film. It's a bit dated. Some of it holds up. There's some elements to it that are like, yeah, we could probably change that. I mean, you got a dude who looks ethnic, but as far as I can tell, in every way, shape, or form, he's American. And he's got he's got an accent, an Indian accent that I would have used as a kid, which isn't a good thing. Hell, I probably got that accent from him. Now that I think about it, I don't know. And I don't do it anymore, but just as an indicator of things and how things have changed, when I would go into my Indian guy accent, the first thing I would do would be boobadi, and then I would go from there. I don't do that anymore because it's kind of fucked up, but you know that's one of the aspects I would definitely change about that film. There's a lot of cornball 80s bullshit going on in it, but I mean, you strip away all the stuff that needs to change. Like, if they were going to remake the film, which I think would actually be a good thing to do, try to maintain a lot of the through line, which is you have, it starts off as, one of 5 military robots that then gain sentience and slowly, not rapidly, but slowly becomes alive. I mean, it's technically alive once he essentially gains sentience and malfunctions, but that's one of it's one of the things they constantly say is that life is not a malfunction, which is an interesting little sentiment. I would say otherwise, but that's just me. Because I'm a broken person who doesn't like being alive. I just do it because it's necessity. And, hardwired into me, if you will. But, again, despite some of the things that I would change that kind of make it not stand out, stand the test of time, overall, it's a great film, and it's like it's funny, it's lighthearted. I would say that the emotional impact is a little less because of the sort of the goofballiness of it. If it took a slightly more dramatic turn, every so often, like Ali Sheedy's just got this, hot-headed boyfriend and he's a piece of shit and everything. But I mean, like, the nature of who he is so much of a caricature that it's laughable, and it just makes him feel like extra. That's really not necessary. But the reason why I watched it was because I wanted to rewatch it, of course, because I hadn't seen it in a long time. But I was comparing it to Chappie, and I was comparing it to Alita Battle Angel, and I would say that I probably now have to rewatch Chappie, even though I don't want to, because the Johnny Five story is more closely related, at least when it comes to sort of some of the existential threats via military and the like, and certain kind of dominant, because like he's a malfunction. They're afraid that he's gonna potentially cause untold devastation because he's a super weapon that's on the loose. And the guy who programmed all the robots, he has to be convinced, and he ends up becoming convinced that Johnny Five is in fact alive, and he doesn't even name himself until literally the very end of the movie. Some of the emotional weight of some of the events aren't going to be nearly as impactful because they're almost tropey. Like, so to kind of steer away from it for a second, tropes in general are just things that have been like done over and over and over again in some way or another, and often you can see them coming. One trope that originated in The Godfather has now been used across the world of cinema, and that is the car bomb, the unexpected car bomb. I hadn't seen Godfather ever until I literally had to watch it for a class. I don't know. Maybe, no, I think I saw it beforehand. Anyway, it's around the same time, so details don't really matter in that case. I believe I may have watched it during one of my acting classes, like one of my first acting classes. It was hot. Like, it's supposed to be a heat-proof spatula, and the damn handle's hot. Toasty. So, because that trope had existed in so many other films, in one form or another, it was like super obvious when I saw it coming in The Godfather, which is where it's my understanding that it was pioneered, that it was first introduced as a piece of dramatic intrigue and twist and all that. And so when I saw it, I saw it coming from a mile away because of the nature of the shot and everything. It's so blaringly obvious. And so tropes being what they are, and certain aspects of the story of Short Circuit, you kind of expect certain things to be happening a certain way. You may not necessarily know exactly how it's going to go, but like, this is happening at this point, and this is happening. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, the next thing that's going to happen is this, and so you can kind of predict a lot of it. And so it's like, if you've seen enough films, it is, of course. Films, TV, it doesn't matter. And so, again, sort of the emotional impact of certain events isn't nearly as impactful now, because the movie is 34 years old. It came out in 88. Fuck, I hate saying that. I'll be turning 41 this year. Oh, man. Anyway, so, all that in mind, despite all of that information, the story holds up well. It needs some fine-tuning. That's why I would say, it would actually be a great film to remake. It would have to be done very similarly. Obviously, reading books and flashing through them and everything, watching TV all the time wouldn't necessarily be the way to go. You've got the internet now, and so the internet would be a great place for him to learn. And one of the great moments is towards the end of the film when his program is like, he's Johnny Five says no disassemble, something like disassemble means death, no disassemble, etc. His programmer's like, who taught you to because it was against his programming. He's like, who taught you that? And he's like, he takes this moment, this good breath, like, it's not a super pregnant pause, but it is a good dramatic pause, and he says, I did, or I taught me. And that's really impactful. Like, I would say that done right, proper composition and this is where, kind of like, if you will, my director brain wants to kind of redo this film, where certain shot composition, lighting, because you could tell they were on a set piece. They weren't in fucking rocks. I was like, this is a set piece. and that's part of the problem, but also that's one of the reasons why film looks so much better now. Sure, shooting it on film is better. I'm a digital person. I have lived a very digital life. I know and value what film does for scenery and the like. That's not to say that it is fully superior. The one superiority that it has, when it's taken care of properly, is its potential longevity. You can get 35 millimeter film, 70 millimeter film, whatever it is that you're shooting with, and you can upconvert it a lot better than you can with digital. That said, digital provides in so many ways. Just for the sake of editing purposes, you have so many non-destructive ways of making footage look better. And whether it's color correction, it's lighting, etc. You can do all the lighting that you need to do, and it's a better idea to get everything on camera that you need. But after the fact, in post, there's so much that can be done. There's a ton of stuff that can be done. And those things can help set the mood. There's a thing called priming when it comes to, it's kind of anything, but the most likely way you're going to be seeing it or experiencing it really is TikTok footage. And it's largely TikTok footage. Somebody's most likely going to have music under whatever this is happening. And a lot of times you don't need it. But people will use certain types of music to influence you emotionally. That is a thing that happens in composition when it comes to film. They'll use certain types of music at certain moments, whether it's very heroic music that is, very in C chords and or it's in a key of C. Key of C is all the white keys. That information plays a certain way in people's minds, and since this is such a global thing, especially Hollywood is, obviously Hollywood puts a lot of emphasis on getting into the China market, which is why there's such a big deal with the whole Chinese thing and so many other factors, and Disney and blah blah blah. And there's this huge ass market. That's where a lot of our international tickets come from. Well, a good piece of bacon. I need some water. But like I said, all of these things impact the way that a person perceives what's going on in the film. A good film will visually, cinematically stand the test of time. There's a lot to be said about Short Circuit. There's a lot of improvement that could be done. You know, um, there's a really good channel. I wish he'd put out more content. I don't think he's put out content in years now, but it's called Every Frame a Painting, and he's a video editor, probably Hollywood, I'm guessing. But he breaks down really well. I mean, these are great video essays about the nature of film, and presenting. And the best part about it is that each of them has its own. I mean, it's very much like a documentary. And the thing about a documentary that you want to do is your angle. It's like, what are you trying to tell somebody about? It's effectively your thesis statement that you're then trying to convince somebody through the process of your video. And he does a phenomenal job of doing it. I will sometimes go back and rewatch some of them because they're just well constructed. But one of the videos he talks about is editing, and he compares Ant-Man to Empire Strikes Back. Empire Strikes Back is, by many accounts, the best Star Wars for a lot of reasons, but editing is one of them. Editing is extremely important. Timing really does matter. It's the reason why something's comedic versus dramatic in a lot of ways. Obviously, how it's performed and so many other factors also matter, but like, you can literally take the same footage and turn, like, people do this all the time too. They'll take, like, when Ross loses his shit in Friends, they'll take out the laugh track, maybe throw in, like a filter or something to make it kind of look on the grittier side, and then throw in a little bit more dramatic music, and now he looks like a fucking psychopath. That's the great thing about editing, is how much you can change something by adding or taking away something. And I think that, honestly, Short Circuit could use that treatment. I mean, I would say a lot of people would hate that film just because somebody wanted to reboot it. But I think if somebody did it right, somebody who cared not about box office tickets or whatever, but cared about the story itself. RoboCop was done poorly. RoboCop in of its, I gotta rewatch that. It's been a while, but the RoboCop reboot, it doesn't work, really. It just doesn't. And you could say that there's no point in rebooting things like Back to the Future, or there's things like, even Short Circuit or what have you, but, and I'm not saying that overall reboots are just a straight up good idea. I'm saying they are things that need to be done a certain way. I still haven't seen the new Ghostbusters film. I understand that it's actually pretty good, and it wants to kind of reestablish that goodwill, if you will, towards the original, because the 2016 film was apparently just a piece of shit. I didn't watch it. I don't know. So maybe that's 2 movies I need to watch. I need to rewatch RoboCop. Well, that's 3 then, because then I need to rewatch Chappie. Then I also need to watch Ghostbusters Afterlife. And Beetlejuice. I already watched that. I watched it last night, and it was great. I mean, it really does stand up. I mean, there's some goofy shit, and the stop motion stuff is kind of weird, but it fits as well. I mean, that's the one thing about Tim Burton, especially his older shit. Like, I haven't seen the Willy Wonka movie with Johnny Depp, but Tim Burton does weird, dark, and broody pretty well. And while there's one thing I noticed about that film, I was like, man, they abusing the shit out of those gels. And if you don't know, gels are plastic films that are colored a certain color. They're very specific tonal colors, from my understanding. Now, back in the day, you probably only had like maybe 10 tops. Now, I'm sure because of plenty of people doing what they do and the like, and especially with editing and as well, you probably have more options. But it's like all your basic colors. You have your yellows, your blue, red, green, purples. Blue and green are often used for like spooky shit. Underlighting, lighting that comes up, often is used for spooky shit. Hence the whole like flashlight under your face thing. The human perceives that differently, and it's almost perceived as kind of like a threat. It kind of makes sense because of the whole, like, the only time that would ever happen is a fire. Because that's really the only time that light comes from below you, at least evolutionarily speaking. Fire doesn't come from below you, and that doesn't, that wouldn't create, there's no other kind of light sources, really, other than sun, moon, and fire. There's light from above, and then there's fire. Obviously, societally speaking, we have lights coming from all sorts of different directions now, but that's not how the brain thinks. That's not how your amygdala thinks. That's not how, the fight or flight recognition sections of your brainstem think. And so and that's one of the reasons why we use underlighting to enhance tension, because it's usually associated with dark. It's usually associated with some potential danger. It could be, and this is one of the things about storytelling, editing. You can use underlighting to subvert the expectations of the viewer. You can make it seem like a certain thing is happening, but in reality it's not. And in so doing, you can put them at ease and then fucking play with their brain or whatever it is you want to do. There's a lot of psychology when it comes to the nature of filmmaking. Being an actor, there's a lot of psychology when it comes to trying to understand a character. Especially if they have been a real person and you are trying to portray that person. There's a lot of psychology behind that. Understanding the human mind is really necessary in order to make a good film. And I think that is why, especially now, certain films are so much better. Now, of course, there's a lot of garbage out there. A lot of it is just cash grabs. And, a lot of it is, look at the Sonic, the box, what is it, the poster for the Sonic movie? The new Sonic 2? Like, it looks like the second game cover. It doesn't look exactly like it, of course, because it's their stylized version of it, but, like, it's definitely like, hey, we see. This is what they're playing to nostalgia so they can get people to go watch it. I've never seen the first one. I understand it's pretty good too. It just seems like, hey, I need to go to San Francisco. Instead of running there because I can literally do that in half a second, I'm going to have this dude drive me. Also, time is of the essence. What the fuck? And, that's one of the things that I feel like, of course, one of the things about film is suspension of disbelief. Because a certain thing is not believable if you go into it and you're like, well, this is just fucking stupid. Robots can't fucking talk. I mean, he doesn't even have lips. Well, who cares? He's got something else that allows him to process sounds. And maybe it's even more complex than the human voice. Who cares? You're not supposed to care about this. You're supposed to care about the character. You're supposed to care about the things that are happening, the events that are happening to them. You're supposed to care about them, the relationships they forged and all this. And I think that, really, having just watched Short Circuit, I think it would be a great film to redo. You know, put the same spirit into it. Make it a dramedy. You know, maybe put a little bit more drama into it, but not a ton. It doesn't have to have like world-ending stakes or anything like that. That's another thing that I don't like. Now that I think about Chappie and Alita, their stakes are too high, I feel. The stakes of Johnny Five were potentially world ending, but he wasn't there to stop the world from ending. The world was there to stop him, and that's important. I feel. I feel that that's the more important part when it comes to AI, because that is what AI is against, or is up against, rather. That's what it's up against now. That's what it has been up against for a long time. When you have people who are afraid of that power getting out, it makes sense that they would want to go after it. And I also like the fact that they didn't bring in the full-on military to take this over until the end, when they were like, dude, we've exhausted our own options. They took it upon themselves to try to be responsible for their own, what they considered malfunctioning machinery. They understood that this, if it got out, could cause untold devastation. But they were like, hey, we're going to be rational about it. We have ways of tracking it. We have ways of trying to stop. But their objectives have obstacles, which is Johnny's ability to learn, his ability to think. And so they're incrementally stepping it up instead of just going, let's go ahead and blow it up with a nuke or something, you know? It's like, it doesn't need to be world-ending stakes all the time. Besides, stakes shouldn't have to end the world. Stakes should be able to feed the world. No, I'm kidding. I put too much water in here, which is why it's taking so long to cook, to boil. But it's whatever. But yeah, you know, it's it would be a movie that I would hope that if somebody did redo, they really took it to heart. They tried to use a lot of special effects. I mean, hell, the intro to this film is fucking great. You know what it is? It's them building the goddamn robot. They're showing lathes, they're showing mills. It's like a maker space, and they're building this fucking thing. That's beautiful to me. Like, it showcases, and I mean, they're plugging cables and shit in, and you're seeing the kind of build-up, the literal build-up, but then they're kind of building it up metaphorically as well. It's a really great intro. I liked that a lot. And I would want them to do the same thing, similarly, with a new rebooted Johnny Five, if they're going to do that. I think that would be great. And, you know, I know that this may be beloved by some, and they're like, no, rebooting it would just be terrible. I'm like, if it was done right, it wouldn't be. And that's one of the problems when it comes to making films, is that how it gets done isn't influenced by the creative minds. It is often done because of the money people. The money people have a lot of the last say. And that's where a lot of the problems come into play. Whether it's, we gotta throw a Chinese person in because we gotta appeal to the, you know, the audience in China or what have you. I mean, I wouldn't give a shit in that case. I don't want to necessarily appeal to China. I want to appeal to the people, but because, you know, fuck the Chinese government. But, you know, you could have them being the guy who made the damn robot. I don't give a fuck. But as long as it all makes sense, as long as a lot of the things, I mean, They kind of sort of did something similar with Jurassic World with the Indominus Rex, where at one point it realized it had a tracker and took it off. Now, why does that thing understand that it has a tracker? And how come we didn't flesh that shit out? That would have been nice. But no, it's just one, at one point, the tracker's on the ground. Okay, it has the ability not only to understand what the fuck a tracker is and how that shit works, and we have no explanation for that, but then it uses it as fucking bait while it has the ability to camouflage itself, and then it's... That's where your suspension of disbelief starts to come back. It's like, what the fuck? But that's one of the things that I find often frustrating about movies, and it's like, this was set in Oregon. I don't even know what fucking city it was in. I honestly can't remember. It was, a bunch of people driving their vehicles around trying to find a robot. In fact, I would say that was more of that than I would have preferred. But it's whatever. Oops. I want to put it in there for 60 minutes. That would be too long. Six minutes is what I need, though. But yeah, I mean, it's a great film. I think it needs a little bit more modern way of approaching things, but it's still not bad. And and I would say that's the reason, and the reason why I would want it to be more modern is because I think you could flesh the story out better. I think it could be made in a way that makes, because certain moments didn't really have that sort of emotional punch the way that they could have, and not necessarily just tropey stuff. It just, some of it felt like it was almost tossed aside, almost like it was like this thing learning the ability to learn is blasé. Now again, it could just be the way that the whole thing was, intended. I don't know. The whole thing is really super lighthearted, and that's great. I think it could be, if you wanted to go for a more emotional punch, certain things should be adjusted, and if you wanted to make it more humorous, certain things could be adjusted. It's one of the reasons why Bicentennial Man is so good, because there are a lot of emotional punches, but there's also a lot of funny shit. The fact that they just start a new scene of Sam Neill saying, "That's where babies come from," and he's like, it's just fucking funny as shit. And it's like, it's in this movie about this self-discovery of a robot, how the story is told from the perspective, a lot of it matters. And most of the Johnny Five stuff happens from an external perspective of Johnny. You get a little bit of his own on his own, but you don't get a whole lot. And while I get that, it kind of takes away from, again, it's not a sloppy movie. It's just, it could be improved upon. The pacing is still fun. Like, it doesn't really feel boring at any point. Some of it feels like, okay, we've done this. We could probably do this. We probably don't need to do this again. But it's a pretty tropey film, and it's a big hit in the 80s, so why not? But yeah, it's kind of fun to talk about this stuff, And when I start thinking about what could be done and how certain things should be done, and even though I don't necessarily have an exact idea in my brain, sometimes I just get a thought and it gets me tickled. Oh. My old piece of bacon, right? Nom, 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 nom. Oh, speaking of bad accents, for the first time in years, I recorded something, edited it, and posted it on the internet. So I was browsing Imgur, and there was this post it was a screen grab from Tumblr, and it was a parody of the Old Spice commercial, you know. Hello, ladies. Look at your man. Now back to me. Now back at your man. Now back to me. Sadly, he isn't me, etc., etc., etc. I used to know that, like, by heart. It was one of the first things that I did when it came to, like, speech and the like, and I did it I did it for one of my speech classes, but I also did it for my editing class, digital audio workstation course. And, you know, I wanted to put them together, and I wanted to make things make sense and all that stuff. And so when I saw it, I started reading it in my head, and I was like, I gotta fucking do this. So I made a comment saying that I would do it later, because all the fans and shit were blowing at the time, and I didn't want to turn them off because it was too hot. And it was about 11:30 at night when I finally fucking started recording. I had to do multiple takes because, you know, it's been a while since I've done any recording stuff like that, and I probably could have recorded it better, but I don't care enough. I just had it sitting right there in front of me, and just made sure, you know, there wasn't too much noise in the background. It's a pretty echoey kind of room, so, you know, the sound treatment's not all that great, but it came out clear enough. I had to make some adjustments to the volume at certain points, and I also found I found the Old Spice whistle, because at one point, instead of saying, I'm on a horse, he's like, I'm on a narwhal, which is a weird way of saying it, because horse is so much easier to say, because it's one syllable, and narwhal there's a lot of tongue and mouth stuff going on with that. It's not very fluid, and the pacing and everything, I mean, I even had to make a couple of adjustments to the actual writing, because it just didn't feel right grammatically. You know, there's some elements of redundancy and whatnot to it, so I was like, all right, and it wasn't a whole lot of adjustments. It was just enough to sort of settle it in my brain and make it make sense. But yeah, so through a bed of ocean sounds, waves and stuff under it, and I had to drop that real low, because I wanted to make sure that was just there as atmosphere. I didn't want to have to deal with compression and gates and all this other shit. I don't want to deal with all this shit. I'm a lazy editor, okay? I mean, that's why I don't fucking edit these. In fact, what is my timing on this? Okay, 40 minutes. It's 37. It's whatever. But how al dente are we? On the transparent side of things, looks like. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, so just kind of threw in the whistle. I had some ocean waves crashing in the background that are super light on the... Actually, that might be better, because there's quite a bit more surface area on the noodles this time around, instead of it being super smooth. Makes them hold the sauce better. And, you know, I had to make a couple of adjustments for timing purposes, because, you know, I took like a sort of really pregnant pause at one point, just trying to get back to the States. I had to, you know, cut that stuff out. And also had to do a quick retake on the I'm on a narwhal thing. And yeah, I listened back to it. It's not the best, but I don't care. I just haven't done it in a while, and kind of felt nice to do it for a change. Yeah, I don't have any professional equipment like I used to, but it's whatever. That's life. But yeah, you know, it's at least I'm not hating the things that I used to like. I don't know to what degree I'll do them, or if I'll continue. I still have a video editor. I still have an audio editor on the computer, and they're there. I'm not gonna worry about deleting them or anything. But I'm also not like trying to be obsessed with them anymore either. You know, I tried the After Effects thing, and it's just a lot. And I mean, if I feel like getting into it again, I'll go do it again. I don't know. But you know, I would say it's just kind of another different type of accomplishment. I don't know. You know, it's like it's one of those things where I can do it, I can get it done. It's good enough. It's done, and you know, it's not the best, but I've accomplished something. I've done a thing that I set my mind down to, and I did it in a way that wasn't super stressful. You know, I gave myself time to do it. I mean, hell, and in this case, you know, it was like I said I would do it some 12 hours or maybe 10 hours before I actually did it. So, you know, I was like, I didn't say exactly when I was going to do it. I was intending to do it perhaps a little earlier, but, you know, temperatures and all sorts of other shit and comfort levels and blah, blah, blah. Then I took a shower and then I brushed my teeth and I was like, yeah, let's go ahead and do this now. Why not? So, you know, it's nice to complete goals. You know, that's one of the things about this whole cooking thing. It's like, it's why I'm going to go get a car today, is for today and tomorrow, and, you know, sort of semi-park for Saturday too, because I want to be able to have, like, I gotta go pick up stuff at the mailbox. I gotta go get some stuff out of storage. I gotta go to the grocery store and get some stuff, so I can do some more cooking. So I can try some more sourdough, because I mean, I gotta refeed it and everything. But I need to get a new water filter because I don't want to have to use this water for feeding the dough or the starter. And you know, I mean, it's like, it's whatever, but yeah, I want there's things I'm trying to accomplish, and they're small, but they're important at times. So that's what I'm trying to do. I can't really think of anything else. I'm about to start eating soon, so have fun.